The question is that the motion... This is a member seeking a call.
I am.
Right. Catherine Delahunty.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou te whare. I'd like to take a brief call on this bill because it's an important bill. Our heritage is vital and central to our nation, and we are very supportive of aspects of the bill. We will be voting for it. I have been discussing with the Minister some of our concerns. I also support Eugenie Sage's speech about the good things that are in the bill, and I understand the concerns of the last speaker. Obviously, we need a robust regime for any review of what was the Historic Places Trust. I think it's quite easy to romanticise how heritage has been dealt with in the past. Actually, Historic Places Trust has been very constrained for quite a long time. They have not had the resources to advocate for all of the issues that they'd like to advocate for. And I'm not sure whether this bill changes that, but we are supportive of many of the changes in terms of the focus on the Māori heritage issues. The issues around Māori heritage are important, and my partner was an archaeologist for many years, and I guess we lived through some of the frustrations of the tension between local Pākehā heritage and the interpretation of heritage versus the reality for Māori and their access to the protection of their wahitapu and their taonga katoa. So this is a very politicised issue, and on the ground it has been hotly contested. History is about whose story we're going to tell and whose objects we're going to protect and whose landmarks are given preeminence. And these are issues that in local communities, for example in the Tairāwhiti where I live, were very, very contested. So for example, whether the story of Te Kuria Pawa was Te Kuria Pawa and Young Neck's head, or whether it was only Young Neck's head, was a very interesting issue, and it was hotly debated amongst the different versions of history and the different holders of history in our community. So I'm interested in the provisions in this bill that actually allow for tangata whenua to have a greater voice. And as a person who speaks regularly about the implications of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, I want to see those voices manifest in all the legislation that we work on and pass in this House. So I have been engaging with Minister Finlayson in a very constructive way about this issue, and we haven't reached any conclusion, and I'm not sure yet whether I'll be putting up some supplementary order papers at select committees at the Committee of the Whole House. But the kind of issues I'm concerned about are around words such as significance and minor. These are very difficult words, and if you look at the RMA, they're very difficult in the RMA as well, because nobody really has ownership of what is considered to be significant in terms of heritage and what is considered to be minor. So, for example, clause 42, it's one of the clauses that I'm interested in, where it says that the effects of an activity on a site will be no more than minor, and that they can be destroyed without consulting mana whenua hapu. And I think this, again, who decides what's minor is a very important question. Is the local heritage, or the former local heritage committee deciding it, local Pākehā deciding what's minor? Is it the HBT archaeologists in Wellington who are deciding what's minor? Or is it the tangata whenua who have a historic relationship with a place over 1,000 years saying whether something is minor or not? And the problem with this clause is we're not asking them. So how will we know? If we don't ask, we don't know. And that's part of the invisibilising of the mana whenua voice so often in the structures that surround our archaeology and our heritage. So that's one of the clauses that I'm very interested in. I'm also interested in this one where we haven't reached a conclusion in a debate with the Minister, but I'm very interested in the issue of who gets to decide which archaeologist is going to work on these sites that are going to be modified and destroyed. And at the moment, developers decide which archaeologists, and in the contested field of archaeology and heritage, there are archaeologists who are dedicated to getting the job done for the developer as fast as possible in the most efficient manner as possible. And there are archaeologists who are dedicated to finding out whether the values of the mana whenua hapu and the values of the history are going to be protected at all costs. And that's a real tension, because he who pays the piper, and I use the word he advisedly, often calls the tune in development. And I think that's been the problem for mana whenua and for archaeologists who are passionate about making sure that we don't modify and destroy without at least talking to the right people about what's at stake, finding ways of upholding and preserving and researching what could be lost through development. And so these are not small things. This is about the bulldozing of urupa. This is about the changing of the face of wahitapu forever. And if nobody asks mana whenua, nobody will know. So, apart from having those concerns, we are supporting the bill. We are willing to see a review of the HPT. We do think it's been under-resourced in its role. We do think that there is value in Heritage New Zealand Pouhere Taonga bill, but we do want to see further on in the committee stages the possibility of looking at that word minor, because it really is one of the most laden concepts that we have in resource management and archaeology and heritage, is who gets to decide what is minor. Because for some people, the colonisation of Aotearoa was a minor effect, but it did help them gain quite a lot of land. But for other people, it was the end of their relationship with their land and their culture. And so I cannot emphasise enough the importance of recognising who should get to decide what is minor, and how subjective those terms are in the law, and how difficult they are, and how they end up being contested through very expensive appeal processes which most mana whenua and other people cannot afford. So we need to write legislation carefully. We need to be really clear about what we mean by terms like minor and like significant, and we will continue this theme and this dialogue as we do continue to support this bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Honourable Phil Heatley.